Good evening to everyone watching this DATV program. My name is Diane Welborn. I am the Ombudsman for Montgomery County. I thank you for joining us tonight, where we have a wonderful program that will help educate all of us, myself included, with my wonderful guests, about the Human Services Levy, which is Levy 1 when you go into the voting booth if you haven't already been there. I'd like to introduce to you my guests this evening. I'll start with Commissioner Judy Dodge, Montgomery County Commissioner. Thank you, Judy, for coming on tonight.
Of
And
course.
also Jessica Jenkins, who is a volunteer with the Human Services Levy campaign and is here to help educate us about all kinds of things that our levy funds and supports and enables. I'd also like to remind our viewers that this is a call in program. So, any questions that you might have about our topic tonight, the levy, voting is already open and you can go anytime. But about the levy, the Human Services Levy, you can certainly call in to DATV and they will put the number on the screen that you're seeing in order to help you call and ask any question that you have. It will be relayed to me through the Zoom chat, and I will then in turn pose your question to my guest tonight. So we welcome your questions as always. We always have on this program, and we enjoy getting your questions and providing that feedback for you. And if you're seeing this at a time when we're not live, then you can certainly always call the Ombudsman's office and we will get you the answer to whatever your question is if you're seeing this in another environment. Again, our program tonight is the Human Services Levy. It comes around periodically, and my guests will inform us about that later and how that happens. But it is a levy that serves many agencies in the community and actually all residents of the community. And I think, again, we will hear more about that from our two guests this evening. So, again, thank you for joining us. We're a call in show. We love your questions. And in the interim, we will be giving you a lot of information about this levy and what it does and why it is important to our citizens. Um, First of all, how much money will the levy provide when it passes for us for the near future? Commissioner, would you like to take that one and we'll see
Sure,
if
sure.
Jessica has a follow-up?
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. But before I say how much it's going to
Sure.
bring in, I want to put this down. I'm going to say this throughout the program. If there's not a chance to get a question answered or anything, the Human Services Levy has a website. So I'm going to give it to everybody now, and I'll say it a couple times throughout the program, Diane, if that's okay. So
It's
people can.
wonderful.
Yes, good. And it's very simple. It's voteforhumanservices.com. All one word, no spaces. Voteforhumanservices.com. So that way, in case we don't get to perhaps someone's question, get it answered, they can still, go, excuse me, go to that website. So how much money? It's about 58 million a year that we generate from this human services levy. And I know we're going to talk about this more, but unfortunately, it's not enough this time. The needs are so great, but we did quite a calling and quite a questioning in our community to see if there's an appetite for an increase in the human services levy this year. And there there just wasn't. Everybody's saying we can't, we just can't. So, or it's not an increase at all. So I don't want anybody to worry that their taxes are going to go up on this. It is staying the same. So, and the money that is raised is so critical. And this is a sad thing. It's our most vulnerable citizens here in Montgomery County. And this is not for somebody that's, working, 9 to 5 and bring someone a nice paycheck. This is basically for the people that cannot work, that are disabled, badly disabled. If anybody has ever been to Stillwater, that is the saddest place. It's a 99-bed facility for our most vulnerable citizens here. And there's a waiting list to get in there because it's so critical that these people need 24 hours a day care. 24 hours a day care. And that's nurses, that's physicians, that's rehabilitation providers, because I've been there. These people have to be turned, in bed and can't eat by themselves. I mean, it's heartbreaking. And that is why one of the many reasons why this levy is so important. We have to keep that going. So I know, Jessica, you've got some other stuff to add to that. I don't want to be the one talking all the time. Because I will.
Spot on. What's at stake is $58 million, as she said. Levy B is issue 1 on the ballot this November, or right now, honestly, and it will not increase taxes. Without that money, as she shared, really truly valuable human services in our community are in jeopardy. That 58 million represents a little under half of our total investment in human services through the combined human services levy. So again, we are really trying to educate and get the word out about the important services that are provided through the human services levy, because there is a lot on the line at a really important time in our community.
Thank you both for that. And we will, be following up here in this program with some other facts that I know you all are anxious to share with us voters. And in maybe you could educate viewers a little bit about who exactly pays for this levy when if it is passed. And you've already answered that it does not increase taxes, but who does pay the money that will contribute to this 58 million that's needed for the levy?
Well, there already are taxes, that have been raised over the years. And so, but it stays the same. So you're not going to see an increase in your property tax bill for the human services levy. No question about it. However, because of this money, and this is another critical thing, and I know Jessica can probably explain this better, and that is that with this money, we also get grants from the federal government and from the state government, but we have to match it. So we have to have money to be able to match. And that is another critical thing. And Jessica, you might want to address that a little bit. I know you're more familiar with that.
You did an excellent job, but I'll just underscore that point, in that is really a point of pride and a point just of strength in our shared levy model, is that because of our investment in human services through Levy A and Levy B, again, we invest about 138 million in human services through the human services levy. That generates an additional 212 or so $1 million in federal, state, and private resources, which then allows us to really have a true kind of combined investment of human services resources, almost $350 million. So again, it really is a strength of our shared levy model that we're able to invest really critical local property tax revenue into our human services, but then be able to generate through leverage another $212 million. Those are not small numbers. And so we really, again, know that they really rely on each other together, working to create a safety net for all of our Montgomery County residents through the human services levy. Really, really critical.
Right.
That's a very important point, and thank you for bringing that up. I may have a couple of follow-up questions on that, but we do have a caller that's already posed us a question only just in the first quarter of the time we have for the program. So thank you, caller. We appreciate your posing your question. The question is how many people are being hurt by the current budget chaos in the federal government, and how, in your opinion, is that affecting residents in our county? Are Will the Human Services Levy help pick up some of that slack? It's kind of a macro question
Well,
for you both, but it still deals with what I think many people feel are future impending cuts that we haven't really seen the full force of yet. But I'll let either one of you take that as you wish.
okay, I'll start and then Jessica can jump in. And that is that, unfortunately, we hear every day of the cuts that are coming down, but it's not like, oh, by the way, it's happening October 30th. But, we know they're coming down. They've already hit us. I think one of the saddest things are SNAP benefits, and that's for the, individuals that need food. And I'm very passionate about food insecurity here in our community. And I'm seeing the results just from the food bank and their cuts. And as far as how many people, it's hard to say. It's going to be a lot. I'll tell you that right now. It's going to be a lot. And Jessica, you might have more of a handle on that. But all I can say is the federal government is cutting. Then they send it down to the state for the cuts. And then the state is saying, we can't afford these cuts. The locals can handle this. And that's what we're faced with, unfortunately. So it's just bad. It's bad. And we have talked to our local delegations constantly and, trying to make them understand these are the most vulnerable people here that you're hurting. So, Jessica, if you want to
Sure. Excellent
say
question.
anything else.
Very timely question. I'm going to echo the comment that it'd be hard to put a number on it, especially at this point, but we know that there are impacts certainly already several weeks into the shutdown. A few things that I know we're going to probably dive into a little more deeply, but that the Human Service Levy supports a number of human service agencies. And so what comes to mind too is just a lot of this anxiety, uncertainty. We have our Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board that is supported through the Human Services Levy. And often in times of such uncertainty, we know our warm line, which is available to people that just need someone to talk through to process some of these challenges, certainly sees upticks when, again, there's so much unsettledness in our community. The Human Service Levy also supports a number of nonprofit organizations that make up our human services safety net at the nonprofit level. And so, as Commissioner Dodge mentioned, food insecurity, I think I saw just today a news story about increased lines at pantries. And so our support of nonprofits like the food bank is also made possible through the Human Services Levy. And so that leverage of being another dollar to pull down additional resources helps, hopefully address that line that's growing, unfortunately, because folks are really being plagued by this, not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow. When will the shutdown end? When will their checks come? And so again, the Human Services Levy steps in to support at the various agencies that are systems, as well as our nonprofits that also make up that human services landscape here in Montgomery County.
Thank you both very much. And yes, Commissioner, you've you've certainly assisted this community in your leadership on the issue of food insecurity for quite some time. Thank you for that. We have a couple of other callers that have come in, and I'm grateful to you, callers. Thank you for posing your questions. We feel like it helps us relate directly to the citizens who are out there concerned about this issue enough to use their phones to ask a question. One is, how do you see the government shutdown impacting the Human Services Levy at this time? Either
Oh,
one.
well, the problem is so many our most fragile and vulnerable citizens here are going to be hurt. And so we're going to have to put a ton load of money from the Human Services Levy And, you know, we're going to have to scrounge around for some other money to help these people. And that's the scary part. And until the federal government and the state government can kind of come up with something here to stop the madness, you know, we're going to do everything we can to save our citizens here. That's all I can say. And I think Jessica will agree that, you know, and here's another problem. I shouldn't say a problem, but you have to understand. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. What was I just going to say? Because I touched something on my computer and it flipped out. Anyway, here's the thing. Okay, you have all these counties under the state. Okay, the state is you know, just like a rock. Okay, well then the state said years and years ago, you know, we really don't want to mess with human services. We're just going to let all the local counties and cities and everything else, let them do that. Well, that's fine, but guess what? That's about 75% of our budget. So you have to understand this, and it's going to hurt us more. I don't mean to be scary or anything, but this is scary.
Yeah.
Jessica, I know you probably have some stuff, and I don't want to be, you know, in a dour mood, but
no, I mean it's a difficult topic, and so certainly
yeah.
things that she shared in terms of what's at stake is, you know, the basic needs of people. If the shutdown continues, and for employees, people that are employed and not getting paychecks, and then all the residual businesses that benefit from having employees go to work, there's really a ripple effect that hits our entire community when the safety net is impacted by something like a government shutdown. Not to mention the slowing of, you know, federal dollars or state pass through federal dollars. All of those, when they are impacted by a shutdown, have local implications to how we're able to deliver and serve members of our community. So we are, of course, carefully monitoring impacts of the shutdown, and you know, being really mindful about what that does to, again, our entire community, from its residents, the agencies that are charged with supporting people in the community. So definitely watching carefully about the various impacts. I think it's, frankly, in some ways too early to know how deep, depending on how long we stay in this position, things may go.
Yeah, and it also depends upon how long it lasts, how deep the impact is. Another caller is interested and concerned about the mental health needs of children and youth, and is interested in knowing what funds from the Human Service Levy will be directed to help kids in our community.
Oh, absolutely. That would be your ADAMUS board, Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services, ADAMUS. And I know they are working very hard trying to get as many grants as they can to get, you know, basically all ages, and get them the help that they need. And I do know that Dayton Children's Hospital has started a wing just for children with mental health issues. So there is a lot of awareness in our community. They're not closing their eyes to this at all. And I just think it's very, very important. And the schools, you know, we want to get them involved because they see it a lot of times first before even the parents do. So it's, you know, it is a very, very big concern. And the ADAMUS board is one of the agencies that gets money from the Human Services Levy. So they're always right there, no question about it.
Thank you. Anything additional that you want to add, Jessica?
She did an excellent job. I mean, I would
Okay.
underscore, you know, last year, Adam has served over 3,200 children and adults, but certainly there has been an increased priority in being able to, you know, serve our young people that often are vulnerable to so many mental health needs and challenges in our community. So really, as she said, Adamus has been a leader in that space of also leveraging those state and federal dollars for their opportunities to really have specific grants and programming to help support our youth and addressing the mental health needs and challenges that they're facing these days in particular.
Thank you, because you hear about that nationwide, that there's a lot more need among that younger population than what they've seen before. So I'm glad to hear that. Another caller has jumped ahead of at least my little agenda for the program and questions, and that's perfectly fine. And that is a question it's kind of hard to ask is what if the levy fails? What if it doesn't pass? What happens to these vulnerable populations? Do we have a backup plan? Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'll let you all answer that. And this is an outcome we hope will not happen. But what about it?
Well, there has been discussion with the Human Services Levy Council, and no question about it. If it fails, and we don't want to even say those words,
Yeah.
then we'll go back out in the spring and get it back on the levy, back on for the voters to vote on again. But we have no choice.
Right. Okay.
I would just underscore, I mean, that's exactly right. We would, work to go back out with our voters, but I would just say, that's $58 million lost. And that is a devastating impact. That's a really big blow to our human services investments. And so that would potentially, require definitely that collaborative planning and coordination to ensure that services that were really critical will be able to be maintained in our community. So again, we're hoping that that's not the case, but certainly do appreciate the question about us having the foresight to plan ahead to make sure that we're resilient and able to navigate challenges if they should arise. But again, it really is something that would be a significant blow to our system as we think about what's really needed to meet the current human services needs that we're seeing day in and day out here in Montgomery County.
Okay, thanks to you both. I think this is probably a good time to ask you all who gets the funds raised by this levy. While we're talking about the people that will benefit, and we've mentioned a few populations tonight. Of course, there are more because it's expansive, but who does get the funds? Where does this money go that we're asking our voters to approve?
Well, I'll just kind of go through some of the agencies here, and Jessica, you fill in some more. I'm sure there's many. Well, as I mentioned, alcohol, drug addiction, and mental health services, ADAMAS, developmental disability services, DDS, and again, that's another one that is so critical because of the individuals that are, disabled and just, really need assistance. No question about it. Children's services, they get some of public health. People don't realize how important public health is. Guess what? You go to a restaurant, well, public health has been there and inspected the kitchens to make sure that the food is okay. They make sure that our air is good air quality. You'll see that on TV sometimes, when they talk about the weather and they'll say, it's the weather's not so great today. I'm trying to think of what I'm trying to say. But, and I mentioned Stillwater Center. And we have to, the older adults, and then, what's that agency, Jessica? The older adult services, senior services?
Yes, it's Area Agency on Aging.
Yeah, it's Area Agency on Aging. And oh my gosh, they do a wonderful, wonderful job of, if a senior calls in or a family member calls in and there's some problems, they need someone maybe just to come to the house once or twice a week to help one of their relatives. They're always right there. They do everything they possibly can for the seniors because, oh my gosh, there's so much great knowledge with the seniors. I mean, they're in such an important part of our life, of our community. So Area Agency on Aging is absolutely wonderful. And there's some other ones if you wanted to throw some out, Jessica.
You did an excellent job. Again, 75 to 80% of the human service levy resources do go to support those major agencies that Commissioner Dodge just, identified. So the Alcohol, Drug Addiction, Mental Health Services Board, the Children's Services Division of Montgomery County Job and Family Services, the Board of Developmental Disability Services, Public Health, the Area Agency on Aging, really comprise that. But we also, in addition, invest about 14% in other community funding in our community that really, again, rounds out that safety net. And so that looks like supports around education, around safety, around housing and homelessness. And again, supports to help keep our seniors in their homes. All of those also are opportunities that we're able to work with local nonprofits in addition to those major systems and having, again, available human services in the community.
I think it's fair to say that everybody that lives in our county benefits from this levy in one way or another. If they don't personally need the services, well, we all eat in restaurants
Yeah.
and we want things to be sanitary. And we all breathe the air in our community, and it's good to have that monitored. So even if we don't have a direct contact with the services provided by the levy, if even if it's indirect, it actually seems to benefit, I think, everybody, all of us that live here. Uh, do any of the levy funds go to education programs? You mentioned a lot of agencies, but I didn't necessarily hear an educational program like job retraining or in this changing environment with AI. And is there are there some funds that go to that area?
So I would say yes. I would say again through our community funding and our partnerships with nonprofits in the community that are delivering human services, we do support a number of education initiatives, everything from with our little ones, after school programming. We work with several nonprofits that are doing, kind of out of school time investment in helping our students be prepared and succeed in school. But then we're also working with students that may have left high school and need kind of that credit recovery to help complete the credential to be able to advance in school. And then we're also working with several kind of nonprofits that are focused on workforce development. And so how do we reduce barriers to employment, help individuals, get those basic skills to be able to have that resume, have that experience, to be able to talk to employers about why they're the best candidate for the job and really help them navigate those career pathways. So things like Goodwill, their Mind Valley Works program, Mind Valley Urban League, and I'm always in danger when you start listing individual organizations, but certainly there are community partners that really are helping us on the ground in the community level throughout varying zip codes in Montgomery County, trying to help prepare, both our little ones for school to be ready for school and to succeed in school, and also our young to mid age and even older adults really thinking about how they're able to engage in the workforce as they need that to be successful in their lives.
Good. And thank you. And there is some talk or writing on the website about the levy council. Um, who, not necessarily names, but what is the levy council and what is their role in all of this, please?
Okay.
So when the voters go in, they know that there is a kind of oversight and participation from this levy council. So tell us about them, please.
Okay, good. Well, I'm going to tell you the start of the Human Services Levy, how it even started. And I was working for county government at the time, and back in the late 70s, early 80s. Of course, I was only 10. But but anyway, the commissioners, I remember coming in, here and there saying, it's like every time I turn around coming down the street, there is a question there, or I'm sorry, there's a political sign there for a request for funds for children. Then like 6 months later, there's another sign for the seniors, and there's another sign for this, for that. We've got to do better than this, because if one of those levies fails, they're done. The children are done because there's no backup of any kind. So the commissioners at that time called in a group of business people, citizens, people that were familiar with a lot of the human services levy information that was needed, and said, what can we do to make sure that we're just, going down this path here that it just drives people crazy? So they formed, and it took quite some time to form what's called our Human Services Levy. And they chose the top agencies that really needed the funding the most, which is what we've just been talking about. the children, the developmental disabled, and that type of thing. So um, that was formed back by that time, it got to be the mid 80s. And it has been so successful. And we have been just so overwhelmed with people saying, thank you, because it just got crazy, like, every 6 months or so with different, signs up. So it's been very successful. And we've had wonderful advertising people that know how to put these things together. And it's every time it's been up, it wins at like sometimes 70 some percent. So we're very appreciative because we think we're getting to that our citizens here in Montgomery County understand the need. And this is not a joke, this is serious. And so we're very, very thankful. And as far as the Human Services Levy Council, it's made up basically of citizens and business people, and also the heads of the different agencies. And they meet what is it, Jessica? Every other month, something like that?
3 months.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And just talk about what their needs are and what the levy council, then they approve what is going to be on the ballot as far as if it's an increase or no increase. So the Human Services Levy Council are the ones that approve it. So, but they've been listening to everybody for the whole year and getting, that they come to different agency, come and explain exactly what their needs are. Jessica, am I saying that right?
I would just underscore that the Levy Council really is an independent body that is really charged with reviewing the agencies that are supported by the Human Services Levy and the allocations that are made, and certainly are designed to kind of be that community voice, which is why, as she described, they're representative of a variety of different sectors in our community. Members of those mandated systems also have seats on the Human Service Levy Council. In addition to the Levy Council itself, there's also another group of volunteers, our community review teams, that meet also to look really and listen to each of the agencies to understand the agency's needs and the current kind of climate and conditions in terms of what other state and federal money that they have and are able to leverage. And those community review teams meet for each of those systems. So ADAMIS, DDS, Children's Services, public health, our older adults. And there's also even one for other programs that kind of encapsulate all those other things that we're investing into community funding. And so those, again, community volunteers really are charged with being able to gain a pulse on what's happening and what the community's human service needs are, to be able then to recommend to the Human Service Levy Council, the allocations for those various systems in our community.
So then, except for those members of the council who are involved with an agency, such as an agency director, all the rest are community volunteers.
Yeah. And that really is by design, that is meant to be, voices of the business sector, the faith community, neighborhood leadership, really to have a cross sector of Montgomery County. Really is by intention and design to have that, shared accountability for these public resources in our community.
Okay, and they're appointed by the Board of Commissioners, and for what length of term?
So some terms vary depending on like the term of service. It could be as many as 3 years, could be 2. It just depends again on the position that's being filled. But it is often a multi-year opportunity for service, again representing whatever that seat might be.
Okay, well that's good to know. It's important to have citizen volunteers involved in all of these
And
things.
try to rotate so that, half the board isn't off in one time. We try to make sure that it's a continuing, volunteer thing, so that somebody.
That's a learning process.
Exactly.
So,
Definitely
yeah.
that.
Right. So you don't have a whole new slate of people at one time to try to handle the deliberations about that. Okay. And what tell us a little bit for our viewers and voters is how much are we paying for we taxpayers, we homeowners, What is the cost? I know that you've already told us clearly there's not an increase in this levy,
Yep.
but what are we paying currently? And we know it'll stay the same, but
Yep.
talk to us about that, please.
Yeah, it's about for $100,000 home, it's about $9 and Jessica, is it $9.50? I think that's what that is.
That's it. 950 for every 100,000
Right,
in property
per
value
month, per
per
month.
month. Correct.
Per
Per month.
month.
A great
Okay.
distinction. Per
For
month.
$9 a month, you people get we our community, our whole community gets it gets that much. Have we had other counties who do not have the consolidated levy that you described to us?
You know,
Um,
since I've been a
in
commissioner, I've gotten several calls over the years about how did you start that? And then I think there's just a few, aren't there, Jessica, that
Yes.
have?
In
Yeah, just a
Ohio, there's
few,
only two others, and we're actually all
two
meeting.
others.
So
Okay.
Cuyahoga is the next kind of largest combined or shared levy, and then Medina has a smaller. They have a couple of their systems combined, but really, Montgomery and Cuyahoga are kind of leaders in being able to take this collaborative shared approach to our human service levy funding. But even with us, we are unique in how we operate our shared levy here in Montgomery County, and just the collaboration that goes into how we do this work here.
right. Well, it's very good. I have a caller here that doesn't have a question, but has a compliment, which is always very nice. A shout out to Commissioner Dodge, uh, to you for all of your hard work and all that you do for the community. So, you
Well,
are being commended on this program tonight.
thank
So,
you. Thank you. Well, I love our community, no question about it. So that was very sweet. Thank that. I
well.
want to thank that. Thank you.
That's great. Now, is the levy that we are all voting on in this particular election, is it permanent or is it something we're going to see again?
Yeah.
Commissioner, you spoke about how there were, people were being dogged by different signs for different levies all the time,
All the
always
time.
coming. Is this permanent? Are we going to see it
No,
again?
yeah, no, this is what, Jess, is it 6 years? Is this one
It's
run
eight.
six
But
years?
it's temporary. It's the 8 years
8
between.
years.
Yeah, but it's temporary, so it is not a permanent levy. So that's a great distinction, Diane.
Right. It'll be up again in 6 years or 8, whatever. Yeah. So, but it stays the same for that amount of time.
And
No increase.
okay,
Yeah.
I know that there's a great deal of pride that it's not increasing because I don't know many people that would vote for increased taxes. But so
I
there's
know.
I know there's a great happiness about that. But what was the last time there was any increase in the levy that we're voting on in this election?
Yeah, it's
Was
been
it
over
5 years ago, Jessica? Was it 5 years ago or
10
6
years.
years?
10 years.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
10
over
years. It
10
has
years.
not been raised in
Increase.
10 years.
Yeah. And I
Well,
think we had a
It was
one
a one
mil, I
mil
think,
in
increase.
2014.
Yeah.
I guess 11 technically. So it was in
Yeah.
2014. There was a small increase of 1 mil at that time.
Yeah.
just 1 mil. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, as we all know, the cost of everything seems to be going up. So, kudos that this is not. This is one thing that's not going up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and you have to understand too, these agencies that we've been talking about, their directors, they know, you know, this is not the time to add a bunch of more people, even though you need them, and this is not the time to get, anything extra special. Um, have to really cut back, and so they have been cutting back, but there's only so much that they can cut back with. I mean, because unfortunately it's the increase. The last time I talked to our county administrator, we're up to over 800 children that need foster care of some sort. And like, just seemed like last year it was like in the 600s. I mean, this is critical here. So, and they have to go somewhere. We have to pay for, temporary shelters and that type of thing for these kids. So it's a scary thing. So, and everything else has gone up. This is not just children's services.
Right, but that is important to note that.
Yeah. Oh, and also, I don't want to interrupt again, but I have to yell. I have to give the vote in case somebody wants to look this up on their website. It's voteforhumanservices.com, all one word. Voteforhumanservices.com.
Thank you,
Okay.
Commissioner. And I'm going to ask if our helpful folks at DATV could maybe put that on the screen so
Yeah.
that people can see it and can write that down because the I don't know, probably Jessica does. I don't know off the top of my head how many agencies this levy supports. We often talk about the five huge agencies and their significant importance in our community, but there are others as well. So maybe you'd like to talk about how this $58 million goes out to serve the residents of Montgomery County. Either one of you, please.
Yes, certainly. So definitely there's the investment with our major systems as we talked about, and then there's the community funding with our nonprofit organizations that also is a part of where that investment is going. And again, it's a range of services from supporting our older adults, keeping them in their housing, to also supporting our housing and homelessness, being able to have an emergency shelter and safe places to be where people are in a housing crisis, to also support people that are experiencing and fleeing domestic violence and being able to have safety and having a hotline and a way to respond to their immediate crisis. So again, as I mentioned, educational supports to help prepare our youngest learners to all the way through kind of one's lifetime and being able to be prepared for work and for a career, to have a meaningful life and be able to contribute in the community. Kind of all of those range of community services are also supported by our human services levy. And so folks, I know somebody asked about particularly educational programs around job retraining on the county's website. If you go to www.mcohio.org/HSPD. Again, it's www.mcohio.org/HSPD. That's our Human Services Planning and Development Department. On that site, we do have a resource guide that lists a number of nonprofit organizations that are delivering human services in our community. And again, a number of those include educational and supports around job retraining. So I wanted just to let that caller know that if they're specifically curious in some of those programming, they're able to find a list of some of those resources right at their fingertips by going to the Human Services Planning and Development website.
Very good. I think you'll be able to see a spike in that website after people learn that and can see where it all goes because it is so many diverse as agencies of assistance that really benefit from this levy.
And I would just add, so in addition to the community nonprofits that we support under the Human Service Planning and Development Department, each of those systems also are deeply rooted in community partnerships. So if you look at the DDS website and the Adamus site, right, they're also really working with our nonprofits to partner. Again, that leverage piece is really, I think, a strong strength in how we operate and invest in human services, is that we're really looking to kind of get the biggest bang for our bucks, so to speak, by being able to work with partners, work to leverage, again, additional resources to really have a more comprehensive safety net. So I just wanted to not miss the opportunity to mention that our nonprofit also work with our major systems to really be able to respond to community need in real time.
Right. That's a very important point because there's just so many agencies and members of our community that do benefit from this levy. I
Yeah,
can't think of,
and
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I was going to say, yeah, real quick, and that is that there's a lot of paperwork that these smaller agencies have to fill out. I mean, they just don't make a phone call and say, hey, we need $10,000 for something. I mean, they are looked over and, make sure that everything that they're saying is true. And, a lot of times they say they really do need 10,000, but yet we just can't do 10. We can maybe do 5 or 6. So I'm just saying, this is not just, can't call on the phone and say, hey, I need, XYZ. So we're very good about, following up with these people.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no. Yeah, you're the expert. You're one of the experts on this. Um, I one question I had here I haven't yet asked is how can citizens who are concerned or and want to have people get out and vote on this because maybe they have had a child or an elder adult or someone that has benefited from some of these services and they want to try to help make sure that they aren't diminished or that they lose funds and the ability to continue to help. How can citizens help with this campaign? What do you all need the most?
Well, we have a wonderful group of volunteers, no question about it, but we could always use more. We're getting the signs out as fast as we possibly can. And, as I've said this probably ad nauseum here with vote for human services, .com, there'll be information on there for anyone that wants to help in any way on that website. So please look that up. And I'm going to give my office number. If somewhere you have another question that we didn't answer or something, don't hesitate to call. And that would be 937-225-6470. And that's my office number. And if someone's not there, just leave a message. 225-6470.
Thank you. Very good.
Sure.
I have yet another caller, and I'm glad they're still calling in as we have some little bit of time left in this program. And they're asking if there is a formula about how the funds that are raised from the levy um, are divided, are dispersed, and also a second question is are new organizations able to make an application for levy funds, and how does that work? But let's take the first one, the first part of the question first. Is there a formula?
Jessica, I'm going to let you take this because I know you work on these.
Why, thank you. Yes. So there's not a fixed formula for how the funds are divided. But as we mentioned a little bit earlier, that is where the community review teams and the Human Service Levy Council come into play. So really it is their charge to review and determine allocations for those major systems and for other community initiatives. And so that is done through, again, community review teams that are meeting with the various agencies to understand their needs, understanding the funds that we have available to be able to kind of prioritize how those funds are directed. And then they recommend to the Human Service Levy Council funding allocations to that end. And then those allocation recommendations go to the Board of County Commissioners for ultimate approval. So there isn't, again, a magic formula, but it really does take the community volunteer leadership and service on the Human Service Levy Council and the community review teams to really, again, lean in, listen, and learn into what's happening at the various systems and in the various program areas to be able to determine funding awards, based on what those needs are at the time. Now, there's a second part of that question that I think speaks to the community funding, probably to nonprofits or those that are delivering services that are not the mandated systems. And so we do, as Commissioner Dodge referenced, have a process for that. So it's not just a phone call traditionally, there is a process. And so for our community funding, we do issue a competitive funding application. We do this in partnership with the United Way of the Greater Dayton area. Again, our goal is to try to make a lot of the administrative burdens less for our nonprofits that are already very busy doing and serving our community. And so we do a multi-year process where organizations can apply for services, to deliver services in the community, and then those applications are reviewed and the recommendations for funding are made from that. So we actually just had a process this spring. We issued our 2025 combined funding application, and just in the last couple of weeks, then presented recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners. But whenever we have a funding cycle and process, it is open to new organizations as well. They would be able to apply as not-for-profit organizations when those funding applications go out. And that is kind of our way of kind of soliciting, who's in the community doing this type of work, and how are they able to kind of, again, help us better support our community's human services needs. So great question. Thank you for it.
Well, thank you for that good answer. But one other point on that, how do people find out about it?
So that same website, that www.mcohio.org/HSPD, there's a funding tab. And so whenever we have a competitive funding process, that funding is listed there. And we traditionally have, a public notice that goes out saying that this is available, and then we'll have information sessions. Again, our goal is to get the information out in the community so that organizations that are interested in collaborating with us are aware of the opportunity and are able to work alongside us in that process.
That's great. And if any viewers misplaced that, if you've jotted it down or if you lose it, whatever, you can always call us at the Ombudsman's office and we can direct you to that. Or any county staff person would be able to direct you as well. I am sorry to the viewers and my guests that our time is drawing short. So thank you for the callers, to the callers who have given us so many very good questions to help us with this. I'm now going to ask Jessica and then our Commissioner Dodge for any closing remarks. There may be something that I did not ask you that you want to talk about for a few short minutes. So, Jessica, please take the
Sure.
mic,
Well,
so
thank
to
you. You
speak.
asked excellent questions. Our viewers asked excellent questions. So a lot of the pertinent pieces were covered, but I just want to underscore again, the importance of having these really critical services available in our community. $58 million able to leverage, many, many millions more in how to serve our citizens. And again, I think it was said already once, but it is really that everyone is touched in some way by the Human Services Levy. And so internally, we have a saying, it's like you can't go a day without human services. It's similar to I think, a Dayton history term, but you can't go a day without Dayton. It's very true about human services. Human services touches so many aspects of our lives and of our livelihood. And so it's really important that we have the support and the awareness of what these resources do in our community and the many lives that it touches. Over 100,000 of our residents are directly impacted by the Human Service Levy, not to mention, again, that additional support that everyone gets by having fresh air to breathe, the ability to eat safely at a restaurant or at a hotel. And so, again, all of that really is the why behind. It's the people, it's the services that really are important to why we keep this critical resource available in our community into the future.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Commissioner, any closing thoughts you'd like to share?
But I'll keep it short. But anyway, thank you, Diane, for having us on. And I'm so appreciative of the fact that we've been able to talk about the Human Services Levy for quite some time here, for almost an hour. And hopefully this explains a lot of, what perhaps our citizens have questions on. Because a lot of times just a sign or something that's dropped in the mail, it just is a few things here and there. But I think we've been able to explain to everyone that was listening, really more technical things that go on with the Human Services Levy. And I've been doing this levies, I think, since I first became a commissioner in 2006. And it's just, it's unbelievable. That's all I can say, that the need is just so great in our community. And thank heavens for our wonderful, wonderful people that live in Montgomery County. they get it. And I can't thank them enough for them coming up and voting yes on that human services levy. No new taxes, and that's the main thing. And I have to end with this again. Voteforhumanservices.com. Don't hesitate to look that up. And if you have any questions, I gave my phone number, 937-225-6470. So again, thank you for allowing us to be on and sharing this information, Diane.
Well, I want to thank both of you for joining me on the program this evening and all of the good information you have provided to our viewers and to the public. And we'll be working toward success. So thank you all very much, and thank you to the viewers who
Yes.
called in and asked good questions, and who I hope learned a lot from this program. So we will end now, and I'll say good evening to you all. Thanks again. Good
Thank
night.
you. Thank you. Good night.